Genesis 33. And God lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, Esau came, with him 400 men, and divided the children unto Leah and unto Rachel, and unto the two handmaids. And he put the handmaids and their children foremost, and Leah and her children after, and Rachel and Joseph hindered most. And he passed over them, and bowed himself to the ground 7 times, until he came near his brother. And Esau ran to meet him, and embraced him, and fell on his neck, and kissed him, and they wept. And he lifted his eyes, and saw the women and the children, and said, Who are those with thee? And he said, The children which God hath graciously given thy servant. Then the handmaidens came near, they and their children, and they bowed themselves. And Leah with her children came near, and bowed themselves. And after came Joseph near, and Rachel, and they bowed themselves. And he said, What meanest thou by all this drove which I met? And he said, These are to find grace in the sight of the Lord. Esau said, I have enough, my brother. Keep that thou hast unto thyself. And Jacob said, Nay, I pray thee, for now I have found grace in thy sight. Then receive my present at my hand. Therefore I have seen thy face as though I have seen the face of God, and thou wast pleased with me. Take, I pray thee, my blessings that is brought to thee, because God hath dealt graciously with me, because I have enough. And he urged him, he took it. And he said, Let us take our journey, and let us go, and I will go before thee. And he said unto him, My Lord knoweth that the children are tender, and that the flocks and the herds with the young are with me. And if men should override them one day, all the flock will die. Let my Lord, I pray thee, pass over before his servant, and I will lead thee softly according as the cattle that goeth before me, and the children be able to endure until I come unto the Lord, unto Seir. And Esau said, Let me now leave thee some of the folk that are with me. And he said, What needeth it? Let me find grace in the sight of my Lord. So Esau returned that day unto his way unto Seir. And Jacob journeyed to Succoth, and built him an house, and made booths for his cattle. Therefore the name of the place is called Succoth. And Jacob came to Salim, a city of Smichem, which is in the land of Canaan, which he came from Pandaram, and pitched his tent before the city. And he bought a parcel of the field where he had spread his tent at the hand of the children of Harmor, Shem's father, for 100 pieces of money. And he erected there an altar, and called it Elohim Israel. Wow, I wasn't expecting that. That's pretty cool. Genesis 33 is the emotional, high-stakes resolution of a 20-year family Cold War. Just hours after wrestling with God in the mud of the Jacob Canyon and receiving his new name and a permanent limp in chapter 32, Jacob lifts his eyes and sees the ultimate nightmare materializing on the horizon. Esau is marching directly towards him, flanked by 400 armed men. This chapter is a masterclass in ancient Near Eastern diplomatic choreography. The physical expression of forgiveness and the subtle ongoing caution of a reformed trickster. Jacob doesn't run away. His newly dislocated hip makes that physically impossible anyways. Instead, he orchestrates his massive family into a highly strategic defensive human shield formation, arranging them by order of his personal affection. The front line, the most exposed, his handmaids and their children, the middle, Leah and her children, the back, the safest position, Rachel and his favorite young son, Joseph. But then Jacob does something completely unprecedented for his character. Instead of hiding safely behind the back crowd like a coward, verse 3 notes that Jacob passes out in front of all of them. He takes the ultimate bullet position, exposing himself first to protect his family. As he approaches the imposing muscular brother, he bows down to the dirt 7 times in a row, the ultimate ancient legal demonstration of absolute political submission to a sovereign king. Jacob is bracing for a flying sword or spear to the chest, but the tensions instantly evaporate in one of the most beautifully shocking verses in the entire Old Testament. And Esau ran to meet him and embraced him, and fell on his neck and kissed him, and they wept. The 400 armed warriors do not launch an assault. They stand back and watch their fierce, rugged leader melt into pure, tearful joy. Esau's models radical, unburdened forgiveness. He does not bring up the stolen blessings, the lentil soup transaction, or the decades of bitterness. He is just overjoyed to have his little brother back. Once the tears dry, Esau looks up and spots the massive waves of women and children asking, "Who are those with you?" Jacob responds humbly, "The children which God hath graciously given thy servant." The handmaids, Leah, Rachel, and all the children approach the fierce hunter and bow low in deep respect. Then Esau brings up the massive convoy of 550 livestock bribes Jacob had sent across the river in waves. "What meanest thou by all this drove which I met?" Jacob confesses, "These are to find grace in the sight of my Lord." Esau tries to flatly refuse the bribe, demonstrating his own immense wealth and contentment. "I have enough, my brother. Keep that thou hast unto thyself." That's pretty awesome. Jacob utterly begins and Jacob utterly begs and panics, insisting that Esau accept the gift as a formal legal sign that their peace treaty is all airtight. In doing so, Jacob delivers an extraordinary, profound line in verse 10. "For therefore I've seen thy face, as though I had seen the face of God, and thou wast pleased with me." Think about the immense theological depth of this statement. Just the night before, Jacob had looked at the terrifying, confrontational face of God at the riverbank Jabbok. Now looking into the eyes of the brother he ripped off, finding absolute, unmerited grace, mercy, and unconditional love instead of murder. Jacob realizes that the grace of a human face reflecting forgiveness is the closest thing a mortal will ever see to the character of God. Esau relents and accepts the gifts. With the reconciliation complete, Esau offers to act as military escort for Jacob's slow-moving caravan. Or at least to have some of his 400 armed warriors behind to protect them from the roadblock to Seir or Edom. Jacob politely but firmly declines the offer. He tells Esau that his children are tender, his flocks are nursing, and if they are driven too hard for even a single day, the livestock will die. He tells Esau, "Let Lord, I pray thee, pass over before his servant, and I will lead on softly until I come unto my Lord unto Seir." Esau's track marches south towards his territory in Seir. Jacob detours, turns completely around, and heads west to Succoth, and, and then settles in Shechem inside the land of Canaan. This sudden detour demonstrates that Jacob deeply appreciated the forgiveness. He still he was still Jacob underneath. He was still incredibly cautious, calculating, and hesitant to fully trust his safety inside Esau's direct sphere of influence. He also knew his destiny was anchored to the promised land of Canaan and not the rugged mountains of Edom where Esau lived. Jacob's journey to Succoth builds temporary shelter for his cattle and eventually crosses into buy a plot of land outside the pagan city of Shechem for 100 pieces of silver. He pitches his permanent tents, builds a formal sacrificial altar, and dedicates it to Elohim Israel, God of Israel. By naming the altar after his new identity, Jacob finally publicizes his transformation. He is no longer living under the shadow of his stolen past. He is officially back in the promised land, independent, at peace with his brother, anchored to his divine calling. Through As chapter 34 will soon prove, settling outside the chaotic pagan city will quickly drag his family into a horrific new nightmare of local violence. This is for sure the best chapter so far.